mass media.
Attacking the podcast world. And based on the true legendary cult classic, Olus Media presents
Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
Did somebody mention biscuits?
Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. They'll beat you, bash you, squish you, mash you, chew you up for brunch.
How bad is it?
Finish you off.
Also, I definitely don't get to fly again.
I'm not talking about that, you wiener! What about the tomatoes?
This is the Attack of the Killer Tomatoes podcast. This week from Wilmington, Delaware, we catch up with Alex Stang. Last spring, he won the Killer Tomatoes prize pack, including the signature perfume and candle. Now here's your host, causing a stink of his own, Costa Dillon.
Hi, this is Costa Dillon with the Killer Tomatoes podcast, and my guest today is Alex Stang, who is a contest winner. He won the contest a few months ago, but we're finally able to have him on. So, hi, Alex. Well, where do you live, Alex?
I live in Wilmington, Delaware, currently.
Okay. And what brought you to the Killer Tomatoes podcast?
I've just kind of been a lifelong Killer Tomatoes fan. My dad put me onto it. I used to watch the cartoon when I was a kid. So I think because I watched the cartoon first, he said, hey, you know, there's actually a movie for it. And that movie blew me away when I was like 10. Mm-hmm. And just been a fan ever since. And I love all four movies, and I love the cartoon.
It's great. You've seen all four movies.
Yep.
A lot of people I talk to will talk about the cartoon show, and a lot of them don't know there are any movies, the ones that saw the cartoon show, and if they do, they're surprised when I say there are four of them.
Yep.
And especially, I think the fourth one is the best one, if you ask me. No insult to George Clooney, but... Actually, yeah, there you go, Killer Tomatoes Eat France.
It's the only physical copy I have, and it's the fourth one.
It's not easy to find.
That's why
it's actually not easy to find. But there was, I've recounted on this. I think I've recounted on this show before. The way that came about was at the end of Return of the Killer Tomatoes. There's always at the end of the James Bond movies. There's always James Bond will return in. So I put in, Killer Tomatoes will return and Killer Tomatoes go to France. Basically because at the time I'd never been to France. And a few years later, we had to write a script to go with my joke. So,
well, I guess that worked.
That's how it came about. Well, it was fun. I mean, we actually, as we say in the credits, the entire movie was filmed in France, except the parts that were filmed elsewhere. So, it was fun.
Parts that you play in the fourth one, because I love the fourth one a lot. I love the second one. I love all of them, but the fourth one and the second one are probably my favorite ones.
Yeah, we're like Star Trek. The even-numbered ones are the good ones.
Well, the first one put me onto all of them, so you can't. That's the
okay.
Man. But I love the parts when you pop in, when you're the street vendor and stuff like that. I love that.
Yeah, that was fun. I can't even remember what parts I did. I remember I had a Brooklyn Dodgers baseball cap on, but yeah. Well, so have you actually tried the perfume?
I've opened it up and I've squirted it one time.
You smelled it?
Yeah.
Tell me what your reaction is to it. And keep in mind, I don't make the perfume.
Well, it's interesting, but
there you go.
It's different. Also, I guess that's my review.
Yeah, it smells. The best way I could describe it was it smells like you would expect a killer tomato to smell like. I guess it does actually smell like some sort of vegetable garden smell.
That's how I said it smells like the ground outside. And
yes, right, exactly. And I had the guy from the perfume company on a few podcasts ago and asked him how they did that, and he said he doesn't know. He's not the scientist. He just runs the company.
It is the unique stuff.
I do wonder, how do you do that? Have you shared it with other people, or is it like embarrassing to let other people know that you're a Killer Tomatoes fan?
Oh no, I everybody knows I love Killer Tomatoes. Well, anybody in my general vicinity knows how much I love them since I was a kid. I go around and I make everybody smell the perfume and or whatever it is. Who's ever around, They know. Just a passion of mine. I love film, so I went to school for a little bit for it, but I never finished.
Oh, nice. Well, that's nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't go to film school at all, so
Yeah.
you've got more film school experience than me. What you say you like the second and fourth films, which as do I. And you already mentioned you like the parts where I pop up in the fourth film. Is there other parts of either of the films, any of the four films that most strike you that you
Well, my favorite
get the most
character,
enjoyment out of?
my favorite character in the series in general, I love Finn Letter. He's my favorite. He's just cool. But I think in the second one, man, George Clooney's pretty great in it. I can't lie.
Well, he is. He gets a lot of guff for that, and sometimes he's not too complimentary, which kind of bothers me because I think most of the people, when they criticize the film, it's pretty obvious to me they've never seen it. They just heard the title, and they assume it must be something, schlocky, and that George had to do it because it was early in his career, and how could you do such a thing? And it's obvious to me they haven't seen the film because of the way they talk about it. George was a professional. I didn't really know him when we hired him because I hadn't seen the TV shows he was on, so I didn't know who he was. We hired him from his audition, and we didn't even know he was, Rosemary Clooney's nephew until he was on the set, and I was talking to him one day, and he said he didn't really get into business because of Rosemary Clooney. Didn't really know his aunt that well. Just and both ended up in show business.
Yeah.
I don't think George ever's done any singing, but yeah, he was. I think that's what makes the movie work. And the same thing with Tony Stark, the guy who played Chad, is they played it for real. That's what makes the story work. Is you have to suspend disbelief that tomatoes are actually dangerous, and once you do that, the humor follows after it. I think if they had done the film as in the terms of I can't believe I'm doing this sort of thing, they would have been as good. And George was and Tony were both that's what their role was, and they were going to play it to the best of their ability, and I think they both did.
I think that's exactly how I think. It's just right there on the line where it just works perfectly. I guess that's why I enjoy it so much. But
well, great. I'm glad to hear that because I talked to a film class at San Diego State University a few weeks ago, and they all had to make a short film. There were like 30 kids in class, and they the professor said, well, they already all had to do a 2-minute film. I said, oh, okay. How many of you did a comedy? No one raised their hand. Not one. And because comedy is hard and comedy is scary, and because you're afraid that people won't get it or they'll think it's stupid or whatever it is. And so a lot of especially aspiring filmmakers won't touch comedy. And that was true of this class. They didn't even attempt it. And if you're going to make comedy work, the actors have to believe in what they're doing. The whole idea is that you as the audience are watching it, and you have to believe what they're believing in order for it to work. And I think they did. So I'm glad to hear that.
well, of course, Professor Dan Green is awesome too. I love Dan Green.
Yeah, well, John.
Who could not?
Yeah, John Astin, I talk to him every few weeks. He's 94 or 95 now. I can't remember. He's still sharp. And we had him on the podcast earlier. He lives in Baltimore. So I don't see him because I live in San Diego. Yeah, I live in San Diego. He's in Baltimore. So I haven't seen him for years. But we do talk on the phone. And he's always interesting. I mean, I can't believe how interesting he is, and how much he knows, and how sharp he still is, and how funny he is. And if you go on IMDb and look at his body of work, it's more than you think. It's just he was in West Side Story, for heaven's sakes. That's how long he's been around. There aren't too many people left that were in that movie, and so it's great. He was great to work with.
Oh yeah,
So
he seems great.
yes, he's a lot of fun. When I first met him, um, he came onto the set. He had a briefcase with him. I don't know if I told the story. And he sits down. I introduce myself. He introduces himself, and he opens up the briefcase and says, "Which hair should I wear?" Because he was already bald. And he pulled out a few kinds of hair, and we ended up, with the raggedy professor looking hair. And then I asked him, what kind of I needed to know his sizes for his suit and stuff, and he said he wears size 6 shoes, and John's like 6 feet tall. And I said,
Oh wow.
six, you have size 6 shoes and 6 feet tall. It seems like you'd fall over. So I asked him how he handled the scenes with Carolyn Jones and the Addams Family because she's so short, and he said he often had to just scrunch down, or she would be on a box because their height difference was so great. It was hard for the camera to get them both in the shot at the same time. So I didn't know that. So if there's going to be more Killer Tomatoes, let's say the Killer Tomato universe lives on, what would you want to see?
I gotta go with. I'm gonna go with the easy end. They gotta go to space.
Killer Tomatoes. I wrote Killer Tomatoes in Space like 20 years ago.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's the script's just sitting there.
It's
It's probably no good anymore.
Jason went to space. The leprechaun went to space. The tomatoes got to go to space.
Yeah, I did write Killer Tomatoes in Space. I wrote it before Spaceballs, actually. Yeah, but it's not. We never made it, mostly because filming in space is really expensive.
Yeah.
You hitch a ride with Elon Musk rocket or something and do it that way. That's what would you think you would rather see? Another live action movie or a new cartoon show?
I personally, now that I'm older, I really enjoy the movies a lot more. I love the cartoon. That's near and dear to my heart. But I think it'd be great to have a live action one again. But they got to be puppets though. No CGI to me.
You mean the tomatoes themselves? Did you like the tomatoes with the faces that we used in the
I did
3 and 4?
I like both of them. They're kind of fun because, like I said, I watched the cartoon more. So actually, I was kind of shocked in the first 2 movies they didn't have face. Well, I guess the FT kind of. I mean, he didn't have a face, but
kind of.
But he was from the.
Well, FT was just FT was just an ET ripoff.
Yeah.
Because the original concept was, how could you be afraid of a tomato? It's stupid. And it was Fox after the cartoon show that made them into characters because otherwise it wouldn't work for a cartoon show. So that's because Fox was the studio that produced 3 and 4. They wanted the characters in the film, and I had mixed feelings about it because now the tomatoes were actually dangerous. They weren't just tomato off the shelf that could attack you in the grocery store. So that's interesting that you would say that because we have had I've talked to people at Comic-Con and other places and asked them. They're the same. They come from the same range as you. They initially were introduced to the cartoon show, what they would like, and a lot of them say they like the characters, the character tomatoes, and they would look favorably on seeing more of the character tomatoes, not just plain ordinary tomatoes, which is
even a mix of
which is different.
Cool.
Yeah, there's a way to do that, and I think if we do something else, we probably will find a way that both of those things can work, because I have an idea. I suggested to a toy manufacturer that we should make masks, and the tomatoes just wear masks. You can have the lone tomato and the bat tomato and so forth, and you could just put the mask on the tomato. You can't. Tomatoes don't work like Mr. Potato Head because once you punch a hole in the tomato, you've had it. So, but you can put a mask on them, and if you get bored, you can just use the mask and put it on your zucchini in the refrigerator and just have a fine old time. So we'll see. He's already made he made what Jason kind of a Jason ski mask.
Yep, and third one
tomato. Yeah, he did that for Comic-Con. He sold them out. So I think there might be a market there. So you don't have anybody that you plan to gift the perfume to?
No, I'm selfish with that one.
Yeah, I can understand. And also, I'll say this politely as I can. You really have to be a special person to carry off that aroma. So that scent. That's all I'll say about that. Well, anything else you want to add to our podcast today? That's been great to have you.
No, nothing really. I mean, do you remember anything? I know the big thing with the Muppet Babies, because I'm a big Muppets fan too.
Yeah.
And the Muppet Babies wasn't that the resurgence?
It was.
Of the tomatoes?
It was a combination of three things. Muppet Babies, and that's what got Fox Children's Network interested, because of them appearing on Muppet Babies. The Medved Brothers World's Worst Film Festival that they toured the country with, and we were one of the films in it. And I've mentioned this on the podcast previously, because we made a deal with them that they could only put our film in it if we won, and which we did. And the third thing was videotape. When videotape had just come out, and they were rental because they're expensive. Most of the studios in those days didn't want their films on videotape because they thought it would cut into their market. But when we were approached, and we said, sure. So when you went into a video store back in the 1980s, and there were maybe 100 titles in there, and Killer Tomatoes was one of them. And so suddenly people discovered the film but had never seen it in the theater. And so those three things kind of came together to cause the Killer Tomatoes to make a resurgence, and which led to the cartoon show and the second film, which at the time we had said, I don't want to do any more Killer Tomato films. But, and you follow the money in this business, and that's where it was.
You got to follow it.
Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure to have you on, Alex. And congratulations on winning the contest. And I hope stay tuned to killertomatoes.com, because we may have some news there about a resurgence of the Killer Tomatoes before too long. So
it's awesome.
Keep an eye on killertomatoes.com, because
all you guys,
if something happens, that's where we're going to announce it.
That's awesome. The pleasure's all mine. Great. Really, it's a big thing. Your childhood to me.
Well, thanks. If you want anything, autographed, you can send it to me, and I'd be happy to see if any of us here can autograph it for you. Just let me know.
Oh, cool. Thanks so much.
You bet. My pleasure.
All right. Have a good one.
This has been the Killer Tomatoes podcast for this week. I hope you join us next time. This is Costa Dillon saying, eat your vegetables before they eat you.
Thanks for listening to Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. Be sure to follow and subscribe whenever you listen to your podcasts. To read the blog associated with this episode, visit olismedia.com. This episode was produced in studios located in San Diego, California, and Tijuana, Baja California. Creative Director Ulises Bretón. Sound Engineer Alan Glazepar. Ina Alvarez is co-producer. Serving as executive producer and co-founder is J.C. Polk. And Chad Pease is president and co-founder. Olis Media is an IVC media company.
Olis Media.